So big PFL news starting to come out about next year. Card today, card next weekend. So who better to talk about it all with than Dan Hardy? Dan, how we doing?
Really good, my friend. Really good. I'm excited for PFL Leon. It's a mad card. I'm very excited to be cage side for it.
And PFL Mana underway right now. So we'll talk. We can talk after later about that card that's going down. But next week, like you said, PFL Leon's great card. Got to know your opinions on the top biggest fights on the card. In my opinion, number one main event: Renan Ferreira versus Nemkov. Who's taking that one? And maybe you can't say who's taking it, but what are your thoughts on the fight?
But I mean, if you're Henan, you've got to use your height and reach advantage, right? You've got to try and keep a hold of the center of the cage and try and keep him on the ends of your knuckles and your toes. Like he's got really good straight kicks, really good knees up the center channel. The thing I'm going to be watching for though is that right hand that he caught Ryan Bader with. Like he's very good at letting the smaller fighter come in, throw their jab, and then cracking them over the top. He got Goltsov with it as well. Like that seems to me like the most dangerous weapon that Nemkov's gonna have to watch out for. If you're Nemkov, you've got to try and get this fight to the floor. I think he's fast, but he's undersized for a heavyweight. Where he becomes a heavyweight is when he's in top position. He's very heavily muscled. He's grown into the weight class well, and I think also because he's not so tall, if he is under pressure against someone who's 6'8", his I mean, Henan come flying in. He's massive, and when Goltsov was trying to take him down, because Goltsov's a similar size, as he level changed, he got caught with underhooks. Whereas Nemkov's a decent bit shorter, and I actually think that's a benefit for him here. If he is under pressure, he's going to be able to get right down on the legs, and then even if he comes up to a body lock, his takedowns are fantastic. The danger is getting close to Ferreira without getting knocked out, and I think that's the biggest challenge for Nemkov. I think if he gets the fight to the floor, then we're going to have to see some developments in Henan's game. His sub defense and his scrambling ability. But just a fascinating fight, a real interesting problem for Nemkov to solve in the opening round.
A great main event to end 2025 for PFL. Super excited for that one. And then this is more respect to Cyborg rather than disrespect to Sarah Collins, but I feel like there's three or four girls in the world that won't be overlooked fighting Cris Cyborg. Sarah Collins is being overlooked by many. So, how do you feel about this fight? Do you kind of agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, like you look at it on paper and you go, Cyborg's 28-2. She's had a ton of boxing matches and kickboxing matches. She's been doing this for years and years. Sarah Collins 6-0. Her biggest win so far is Liam McCourt, and it was a big win. It was a lovely counter right hook. Took choked her out on the floor, but she's right at the beginning of her career, right? She's a very, very young fighter as a pro, and she's taking on like one of the legends of the sport,
A
not only
goat.
in her weight class, but yeah, exactly. So it makes sense that everyone's going to go, yeah, of course. I mean, Cyborg is going to come in, she's going to beat Sarah up and take the belt, and then maybe defend it once more if she's got another fight in her. I've been watching Sarah Collins. I called that fight against Leah McCourt, and I'm excited for Sarah. I like an underdog story. I really do. And I think, you look at Sarah and you think to yourself, like, she's stepping up to fight Cyborg. Like, she must feel confident to be able to win the fight somewhere. So, what's she seeing in this fight? Like, what is she preparing for Cyborg? Because Cyborg, you get the same version of Cyborg every time. She's going to come crashing forward. She's going to stay in your face. She's going to try and put you up against the fence and punch you enough times for the referee to step in or for you to just fall apart.
Right.
And Sarah's got to have a plan to deal with that, right? There's loads and loads of footage on Cyborg. She could be studying her for months. She could know every part of her game. Whereas Sarah's very much an unknown commodity. And she's going to be better than she was against Leah McCourt. And we've not seen her since that fight. I I love an underdog story, like I said, and I really feel like Sarah Collins has got some surprises in her toolkit here. Like her counter striking is excellent. If she gets in the clinch, she's got great judo. If she hurts Cyborg, she doesn't necessarily have to knock Cyborg out to finish her.
Right.
Like she didn't knock Leah McCourt out, she knocked her down and then choked her out. Like I'm not underestimating her. I'll be holding my breath when that first round starts because I think Sarah's got some surprises for everyone.
And this is all next weekend, PFL Lyon, December 13th. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tune in. Absolutely great card to end of year for PFL. And my biggest question about 2026, just because I don't know if they're conflicting reports, but I saw articles that are now like deleted saying PFL's tournament will no longer be with the new Vice deal. It'll just be regular cards. Do you know, is there any truth to this? Is there actually no tournament next year? Is that official?
My understanding is that we're going to straight promotion format. So we're going to have champions in weight classes. We're going to have ranking systems, and the system is going to look way more like the normal MMA fan would recognize. And I think it's a good move for us. We can do bigger cards every time. We can prioritize title fights at the top. Like the confusion sometimes around the tournament, especially if you join the tournament, in the semifinals, or you just happen to find the finals and you kind of don't know how these guys got there.
Right.
I like the fact that we're going to have some more flexibility, and I also think that this opens up the opportunity for people to step in left field, join the promotion. Especially if they're coming in from another promotion where they're already ranked or already, qualified as an elite fighter. Like they can jump straight into a situation where they can get ranked and start chasing a belt. So I think it's going to work out better for everybody all round. I mean, the fighters, the fans, like that tournament format was an absolute
It's
grind.
hard.
And I
Yeah.
spoke to a lot of fighters. They were like, man, I just don't think I have the energy to do that thing again. So, I think this is a smart move. I think this is the right direction for the PFL.
And some people would say, like the tournament format is what made PFL exclusive, unique, its own thing. So, like, how do you, I don't know, I guess one, navigate, but two, compete with just doing these promotional cards, like you're saying?
Well, look, I mean, I think the tournament format still works on some levels. I think, I'm a fan of the old Pride Grand Prix days. I
Yeah.
used to love the K1 Grand Prix. I liked it when Bellator did it. So I
Hmm.
don't think there's any reason why a tournament can't come back into the promotion in the future. But being the basis of the promotion made a lot of things difficult and quite difficult to follow. Um, when you look at areas like, obviously you mentioned PFL MENA, PFL Africa, they're areas of the world where like the grassroots really needs some help. It needs some focus. So a tournament format gives those fighters the activity that they
Yes.
need. I mean, young fighters, they should be fighting more than 3 times a year. Like you should have amateur fights. You should probably have, 5, 6, 8, 10 fights a year as an amateur, crossover to MMA, crossover to pro, and then, be pushing the pace again. Like, especially if you're an injured, you're fighting lower levels of competition, the fights are probably ending quicker. Like, you need to keep your foot on the gas. So I like the tournaments for the younger fighters. I think it worked well for PFL Europe, but I also think Europe just generally is more accustomed to like the elite level fighters, and we have a lot of elite level fighters in Europe. Whereas, the Middle East, Africa, they need some help to kind of generate more of a foundation for the sport there, and I think that's where the tournaments can be best served.
And I mean, PFL has, it's not like you guys have only up and comers. Like you have big stars too. I mean, Ngannou, Usman's got a fight coming up. Brian Battle signed, Johnny Eblen re signed. So I imagine with guys like that, it's easier to pitch, hey, no tournament for you guys. We're just going to get you on big cards when you want to fight. And I imagine that was kind of part of the thought process too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to balance a roster of elite fighters with a tournament format. Fighters, they want to fight on their own time schedule. Sometimes a fighter gets injured and they don't want to feel like the opportunity of the year is now passing them by because they can't make the next date. That can be very frustrating for a fighter. Like the bantamweight bracket last year, at 2025 was a lot of fun. We had really good fighters in it, but the finals were two alternates, two guys that stepped into the tournament as it was progressing. Um, you can imagine people like, people on the sidelines watching the tournament going on because they were injured, are very frustrated. That also makes it very difficult to have a ranking system and to have like, a figurehead for the division. So I think this will just work out a lot better. I think the fighters will be able to control their careers a lot better. I think fighters in other promotions, if they want a change, they can step in and know where they're going to fit into this without having to wait for the next cycle to start and all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited for it. I think, like I said, the tournaments will work in certain areas of the world, but the overall big PFL shows, we're going to be more straightforward and mainstream from now on, I think.
Well, it kicks off February 7th. Great card. Usman Nurmagomedov, Alfie Davis. How hype are you for this main event?
Man, this is a martial artist's dream. This matchup, this
Yes.
is you've got two very very different styles coming in. I mean, obviously you know what the Nurmagomedov camp can do, but Usman and Umar are very different style of fighters to the
Mhm.
rest of the camp. They've got a much more of a like a wushu flair to their striking, and then you've got Alfie Davis, who's like the legit Karate Kid. Like the
Yeah.
way that he moves is very unpredictable, and I think because Usman's had a couple of close fights with Paul Hughes, he's now not going to overlook Alfie Davis in any way. I think he's also going to recognize how good Alfie was against Gadzi Rabadanov, who's obviously a teammate of Usman's. You know, I think just the fact that he was able to make it the 25 minutes is going to be a flag for Usman to go, man, I need to be ready for this guy. And then the other thing as well, Alfie's an interesting one because he carries his heart on his sleeve. You know, you kind of know when he's not very confident, and he doesn't mind showing you that because he's still going to go in there and do it anyway. It
Sure.
reminds me of Darren Till in a lot of ways. I think the reason why the fans liked Darren Till was because he was honest about the fact that
Yeah.
he was anxious, he was nervous, and in these last three fights with Alfie, like you look who he's beaten. Like he was getting in there against Clay Collard, who's an absolute savage, most likely going to be dead defending takedowns for the whole time. Knocked him out with that beautiful spinning elbow. Then he's up against Brent Primus, who's a tank in the lightweight division. Another great performance. And then to win against Gadzi Rabadanov, it's almost like Alfie was watching himself becoming the fighter that he is right now
Mhm.
and being like, man, I'm actually really quite good. And now he's got this kind of funny, jovial, poking fun at people, making up names for people and stuff. I think he's enjoying the fact that he is as good as he wanted to be, and I think that makes him a very dangerous test for Usman.
Dakota Ditcheva also back. Denise Keelholz. That's a great fight. You said earlier in the year, you said Dakota's your flyweight goat right now. She's the best. So my question isn't to back that up, whatever. I mean, a lot of people agree with that sentiment. My question is, do you think we get to see Dakota ever? And it could be someone who's coming up in the PFL. Maybe PFL signs someone. Do you think Dakota ever really gets to test herself against, like the Valentina Shevchenkos, those type of fighters of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think she does. Absolutely. I think the way that Dakota's career is moving. Like there's only success in her future.
Sure.
Denise is a very interesting fight purely because she's a great kickboxer. So
Mhm.
you've got someone that's going to challenge Dakota in the range that she's most comfortable, which might push her to do something different. Like we've seen her win. With grappling in PFL Europe, we might see a
Mhm.
bit more of a grappling this time around. And I think obviously the next fight would make sense would be Liz Carmouche for the title. She's going to need to be able to wrestle and grapple against Liz Carmouche if
Yes.
it hits the floor. So, that for me will be the defining test for Dakota right now in the PFL. But we are also signing other fighters. We've signed a couple of other female flyweights. We've got a couple of others that are on the radar at the moment. So the idea of you know building more of a division around Dakota is going to give her more tests. Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's only a matter of time before she fights Valentina Shevchenko. I think the
I hope
demand for
so.
that fight is going to be so great. Like me and you, we're talking about it right now. The demand for that fight is going to be so great at some point
Yeah.
that it will make sense that whether it's a co-promotion or what, like I think we'll get there eventually.
So much to look forward to in terms of PFL. So I appreciate you catching me up on that stuff. For the last few minutes of this interview, I do want to flip the switch to you, specifically coaching. Like I said, I've talked to Veronica plenty of times before about your coaching tutelage. I saw this past week or maybe 2 weeks ago, or whatever, you were actually leading an MMA class at Extreme Couture. So I guess what are your ultimate goals with coaching? Like, is it solely going to be focused on Veronica, or because she's mentioned to me, you might have interest in bringing in other girls or other fighters too?
I mean, Veronica's my focus, of course, and she always will be. Purely because she's my wife, and
Sure.
like I mean, her career is so much more connected to me than anybody else's,
Yeah.
probably like including mine at this at this point, But at the same time, like having a good group of people around us while we're training is essential. We're at Extreme Couture and the atmosphere on the mat is great. There's a lot of people here, a lot of different characters, a lot of good energy here. We have a lot of fun training here, and there are a lot of good girls, elite level girls that she's training with as well. Um, you know, Tatiana Suarez, Piero Rodriguez is here, Haley Cohen's here. Pani Kienzad's been a great sparring
Mhm.
partner these last few weeks as well. It's a really, really good spot. And the thing is, if I'm there focused entirely on Veronica, then other people start asking me questions. And I just love talking to other fighters and sharing
Sure.
knowledge. So there's been a couple of other fighters I've worked with a little bit since I've been here, like lower level fighters that are early in their pro career that have shown a lot of promise. And I'm at the disposal of the Extreme Couture team. They've always been amazing to me. I trained here like 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
Randy has always been a hero of mine, and they just run a great gym here. The energy's good, and the fighters really come and give their best. So I'm just enjoying being on the mat here again, and I would imagine if we're here next year, I'll be probably doing a bit more coaching for them as well.
2 questions left. Number 1, because it was
Okay.
announced this morning, UFC is going back to London March 21st. Veronica looking at that. Is that the target date maybe?
It's something that we always keep in mind, yeah. I mean, London is a special event. I've fought there a couple of times myself, and it's always great to walk out to the O2 Arena. So we'll keep that one in mind, of course. We're spending a lot more time in the US as well, and there are going to be a lot of shows in the US as well. So we're kind of open, really. We don't really mind too much where she's matched next, but we're going to be ready for it regardless. We're in Vegas now, putting the work in, and she doesn't have a fight matched, so that kind of sets the tone for 2026, and we'll be ready regardless.
And for my last one, you can tell me to buzz off. I won't be offended because I'm not asking you, when are you fighting again, Dan Hardy? I'm not asking that. But I have to imagine coaching, being as hands-on as you are, does that give you more of an itch to want to fight again, or the opposite? Does it kind of like feed your urge?
I enjoy coaching because I can see a lot of benefit in a short period of time. You know what I mean? I can work with 3 or 4 different fighters and give them something to work on, and then over the next few days they'll come up to me and they'll go, "That was really working. Thanks for that." That's very very fulfilling. And sometimes I feel like I'm kind of stepping out of bounds, going, "Hey, do you mind if I just kind of point something out to you that might be helpful?" But the guys here are always so receptive, and that encourages me as a coach to kind of open up a little bit more as well. I mean, I've done coaching over the years, and it's always been something that was in my mind that would kind of be a part of my relationship of mixed martial arts
Sure.
more than anything, just because I think I was kind of raised as a martial artist that's your responsibility. Like, you pass it down, you improve it best you can, you pass it along, you learn what you can, you pass it along. And I'm still trying to figure a lot of stuff out myself, but being in the gym and learning from, I'm on the mat with guys like Patchy Mix and Sean Strickland, and
Yeah.
like, whatever you think about Sean Strickland, he is awesome on the mats, he's amazing in the gym. So I'm learning every day as well. So being a coach, being a student, I'm not quite sure which I'm focused on most yet, but I'm just enjoying being back on the mats.
So you're saying there is still hope.
I don't know. I don't know. The world's a strange place, and there are lots of weird fights being made. So you never know. I don't think I'll ever retire. Let me put it that way. I just don't think I could. In the back of my mind, the idea of, no, I'm never ever going to have a fight again, it would just feel like a weird thing for me to say. And I've had this same conversation with Conan Silveira, who's a decent bit older than me, and he's still not retired. So I'm hanging on to my activity.
Well, get used to people asking you this, because I don't know, I feel like everybody would love to see another Dan Hardy fight. And I know you get asked a lot, so
Perfect.
just doing my service there. But Dan, I appreciate your time. Before I get you out of here, anything you want to say to all the fans?
No, just I'm back on my YouTube next year. It's been a bit quiet this year. I've been so busy with other things, but I miss doing those breakdowns for everybody. So the War Room will be back, and we'll try and get as many outlaw podcasts as we can done as well while we're traveling around and stuff. But just love to everybody. Thanks always for the support, and you know, yeah, keep on watching the fights and supporting the fighters.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Big things for PFL, and probably some big things for the Hardy family too. Dan Hardy, you the man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, brother.